Lots of good cooks and lots of good food, and wonderful recipes too. But for a meal that makes folks smile, there's one thing you must do. Cook it with love. Cook it with love. Cook it with love. Love is a great ingredient, the best that we can find. The simplest meal that's cooked with love will nourish humankind. Cook it with love. Cook it with love. Cook it with love. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Cooking with Tasha, sometimes known as Cooking Without a Kitchen, just for fun. Okay, well, I have news for you all, and that is that my diet has changed quite radically, and I thought I always had a good one, but I started getting gallbladder attacks, and that is no picnic, I'll tell you. Very, very uncomfortable. So what I've been doing is I've been changing my diet because one of the very first things I had to learn was the only fat that I can digest these days in any quantity at all is, guess what, olive oil. If you have any issues with your gallbladder, you can actually, believe it or not, eat pretty much olive oil as you wish. Now, I'm not talking about gobs and gobs, but you know, as on your various vegetables, in your stir fries, and so forth and so on. So I use a light olive oil for my cooking, and I use the more, prominent tasting olive oil, generally speaking, more on my vegetables or as a flavoring agent, or as you will see in the dressing I'm going to show you how I make as well. The dressing itself, and I'll be giving you a bit of the recipe as well later on, that's going to show up on the screen, because it's very, very good, and I use it instead of mayonnaise. I was always one to love mayonnaise. I know some people don't like it, or they don't fancy it, but I always loved it. So here goes my onion. The stir fry, this is kind of a generic stir fry. I put in about a half an onion. Now I'm talking about what will feed 2 to 4 people here. Okay, 2 to 4, I'm saying, more or less. And what I'm suggesting is that you can put almost anything you want with it. I'm choosing to put chicken because I pretty much am not eating beef. Now, if you have any issues with your gallbladder, you would do best to avoid beef as well as pork and lamb. In other words, you want to stay away from all red-blooded meat, chicken and fish. Well, chicken I suppose is red-blooded, but it's not meat by my standards. Chicken and fish are fine as long as you don't eat too much. And you know, that's the number 2 thing. After the oils, it's about quantity. I found one day I thought I was doing so well, I wasn't eating anything I wasn't supposed to, but I ate too much. And you know, one of the strange things that I have discovered as a result of this experience with my gallbladder, that for years I have actually been eating too much food. Now you would think if I ate too much food I'd gain weight. Well, I didn't, because my body found different ways to get rid of it. And I thought, oh, you know, I'm doing fine and I'm not gaining any weight, but I wasn't losing any weight. I was trying, but I wasn't losing. So because I'm doing chicken, I'm going to add some celery this time. Celery is very nice with chicken or fish. Celery is a wonderful vegetable. In point of fact, the flavor of celery is very good, and celery has a lot of minerals in it. It also is helpful as a diuretic, which I think can be very useful to some of us as well. But if you have a healthy diet and you drink enough water, you probably don't need a diuretic. And also you have to be careful about salt, needless to say. So now we've got like a basic stir fry here. And I might add some garlic, only I forgot to bring it. So we don't have garlic today. With a little help from my friends, I got myself open here. So on we go. I'm pouring off the liquid that comes in the can of chicken and measuring it, because as you will see, we're going to put the chicken in. We're going to turn this back on so that we get it at a good temperature. And we're going to scrape the chicken in here. Now this is a can of chicken, very simple, fresh chicken. Nice thing to have on hand, by the way. I find it to be very useful, and sometimes I use it to make soup as well if I'm in a hurry. If you're cooking for a big family, of course, you're going to use something more economical. But for me, the canned chicken is perfect. Now, we're stirring this around. And if we want to, we might add some herbs. I've got parsley here. That's always tasty. And I use my scissors as I find them to be most useful for things like cutting up parsley or any other fresh herb. Fresh parsley is easy to find, it's inexpensive, and by golly, you really don't want to use the dried stuff. It doesn't have much taste. But so now we have a good little stir fry here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour in, guess what, some rice. Now, sometimes when you want to have rice with your chicken, you cook it separately. But I discovered, much to my happiness, that if I add the rice in with the chicken and then a little chicken broth, 1 cup, and then I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit. You can add salt, pepper, you know, any herbs. Thyme is very, very good in a stir fry. One of my favorite herbs to use in a stir fry, in fact. And we're going to make sure that that's cooking nicely. We're going to add another dollop. There, just enough. Okay, we can always add more if we need to. That's the thing, you know, it's so easy to add more, but decreasing it is not always a possibility. So we're going to put the cover on. We're going to turn it down a wee bit and let it cook for the next while we make the rest of it, what we're going to make. I have something wonderful here that I want to make for you. And this is what I call, well, one name for it is cooked or boiled dressing. That's not very romantic. I call it instead of mayonnaise. How about that? Because mayonnaise is totally on the off list if you have gallbladder problems. At least it is for me, and I suspect it might be for anybody who does. So, let us think about substitutes for mayonnaise. There are many things you can substitute for salad dressing. Oil and vinegar is great. Oil and lemon juice is wonderful. Incidentally, the more lemons you like, the more lemons you can incorporate, the more lemon juice you can incorporate into your diet. It's also good for your gallbladder because lemon juice is wonderful for the liver. And so my suggestion here is that we're going to make now a dressing, and we're going to start by putting in the dry ingredients. I'm letting this heat up, so I'm going to let that heat up a little bit, and I'm going to put in the dry ingredients first. Now I have here 2 tablespoonfuls of flour and 2 teaspoonfuls of sugar, okay? And you'll be seeing that on your screen. And a little bit of salt. Don't need much. 1/4 teaspoon of salt is enough to flavor it, but you don't need a whole lot of salt, okay? Very good. Now we have that to mix up here. And next we're going to add, if you use dry mustard, you can put that in now if you want to. Or if you use fresh mustard, freshly made mustard, made up mustard, you can put that in. Now, here again, you know, a lot depends on what your taste is. If your taste, if you like more mustard, you can have more mustard. If you like less mustard, you can have less mustard. I happen to like a medium amount, so I'm going to use 1 tablespoon here. I have made it with the powdered mustard, and it's perfectly fine with the powdered mustard as well. There. But I think a tablespoonful is going to do me just fine today. Alrighty, 1 tablespoon here. Okay, that's steaming pretty good. I wonder if it needs to be turned down. You don't want it to cook too fast, so we'll turn it down a little bit further. Okay, now that's good. And we're going to add the liquid ingredients here. 1 egg. And 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Now that's going to be all the oil in this dressing. So it's very low in calories. And it's so easy to make. You know, nothing fussy about it. There we go. And then, last but not least, 3/4 of a cup of some kind of milk. Now, dairy really should be off the list for gallbladder issues. However, if you don't have any problems, then I wouldn't worry about it. I wouldn't worry about it. Yeah, you're cooking. That's good. Okay, so we've mixed up everything except the last part of the liquid ingredients. Sometimes it's easier to mix up your liquid and dry ingredients when you don't have a lot of the liquid ingredients in. And then I'm going to add this. Oh, and the vinegar. Mustn't forget the vinegar. Here it is. Yes, yes. Now I'm using 1 tablespoon of vinegar. Some people might want it to be sharper, in which case use 2. And then reduce the rest of the liquid by 1 tablespoon or 2. You don't have to be precise here. It's all going to be just fine, even if you don't, you know, as long as you don't do anything too radical. Okay, so got the basic sauce here. You can add pepper. Didn't happen to bring any with me, but you can. I am kind of careful with any kind of spices. Now, I found that chilies were very bad for me and did not work, especially with my gallbladder. You may find that chilies are okay for you, in which case I wish you well with them. I have had no problem with any of the curry spices. And in fact, they may be good for your liver. You can always Google, you know, gallbladder and liver, things like that. But a lot of what I've learned by trial and error. And it's, believe me, no fun when you end up with a big deal stomach ache that you can't get rid of for a long, long time, like, oh, maybe 24 hours. Pretty hard to sleep on that, too. So you see, I'm really, really careful with what I put in. Eventually, I plan to have my gallbladder taken out, but you know, surgery being what it is these days, there's an awful lot of it waiting, people waiting. So I have to wait my turn. And in the meantime, I'm really learning just how to do it right. Okay. Here we go. Now then, I've got this down about as low as it'll go, so I might add some more water. Well, I can make it go a little bit lower. That might help. I think I'll add a little more water. You see, it doesn't matter if you got a little more water than you need, because it'll just turn into a delicious gravy sort of thing. Another thing you could add today, to this rather, if you liked, would be curry powder. If you wanted an Italian style chicken or tuna, you could add tuna too. If you wanted an Italian style, you could add Italian herbs like basil and oregano and things of that nature. This is why I called it a generic stir fry. There. Okay. Now, see how this is thickened up? There it is. It's all made. All thickened up, all made. Now, I set this aside, and then later on I can add it to what I'm going to make for you next, which is a tuna salad. Turn this off, and we'll go from there. Now then. Now I can add dill, I can add tarragon. Sometimes I do, but you know, usually I leave the dressing plain. See how thick that is now. Let's look. It's just like a mayonnaise, really, or you know, a cooked salad. It's cooked salad dressing, but oh, it is good. I'll tell you. I will just check this out. Let's make sure. It is so good. Now then, lastly but not leastly, I'm making you a tuna dish, and I'm going to move the little stove here over there so it's out of the way. How are we doing? Well, now we're not cooking much. Cook you a little bit more. Here it's cooking. Now then. Another thing that I often do, you know, I'll make up something like this, and then I'll have it in the refrigerator for a day or two or three, and it's usually fine. No problem with that. And guess what? I'm in a hurry for supper. All I have to do is get out what I've cooked, and I'm all set. But this is something most of you probably already know about. I've got sticky fingers. Do something about that. So, now we're going to make a little salad. And I've got a nice bowl here to make it in. And once again, I'm going to use my red peppers. And here again, my trusty scissors are a big help. I find that for almost anything but onions, I don't like to cut up onions with them, or garlic, because I don't get as good control. But with something like peppers, it's perfect. Okay. And so I'm going to make a little tuna salad. I don't know if I'm going to need all of the peppers or not. Once again, you can judge by eye pretty much what you need and what you don't. And another thing about the gallbladder, and this is maybe one of the most important after the oil, and that's quantity. I discovered to my horror that I have been eating probably half again as much food, if not more, if not 2/3 as much food as I actually needed. That was a big, big discovery. Because, like I said earlier, I wasn't, you know, I wasn't getting fatter particularly, and I wasn't feeling all that full. But the nice thing is that since I went on my gallbladder diet, I've lost almost 15 pounds, and I haven't been hungry. One of the secrets of not being hungry is to eat frequently enough. Now, snacks are important, but they must be the right kind of snacks. In other words, you can have crackers and cheese, for instance, if you're using goat cheese. Now, I don't recommend that people with gallbladder issues eat regular dairy cheese, but goat cheese is fine, and you can get firm goat cheese as opposed to the soft white kind in many supermarkets now, which is a great blessing for those of us who love cheese but can't do much in the way of dairy. So we have a little bit of a stir fry here, a little bit of a salad at the beginning, and I'm going now to cook. Here we go. I'm going now to put in the scallions. Scallions are wonderful in the onion family. They're used in a lot of dishes, in Chinese dishes. I like them in salads, partly because they're one of Stephen's most favorite things. So here we go. Into the salad go the scallions. Yep. Very tasty. And not too strong in the onion department either, they aren't as strong. Okay, so that's good. And now guess what? I don't use tomatoes, but I have found that fruit makes a lovely substitute for tomatoes in most things that you might use tomatoes in. I'm talking about salad type things, obviously, not sauce, not tomato sauce. So what I've done is I've learned to substitute, and here we go. I'm using my scissors to cut up the grapes. How about that? I find that when you do that, you get a nice taste of different kinds of things. And then I'm going to add tuna in this case, but you know, if you wanted to, you could add chicken or anything else you want, like steak or tofu. Some people like tofu salad. And you could add some of that nice smoked tofu. For instance, you can buy at the health food store lovely smoked tofu. Many people really like it. Stephen's one of them. And it makes a very adequate meat substitute. Good. Let's take a look at my stir fry and see how it's coming along. Are you coming along? Yes, you're coming along very nicely. Good. Rice is cooking, which is what we want it to do. You don't want pieces of hard rice. Only cooked. Okay, and turn that up a little bit. Almost finished here. And then we'll open up the tuna and we'll add it to the salad. Now, some people like olives. That's tuna niçoise, I think it's pronounced in French. Niçoise, I think that's what it is. And that is very tasty. Olives are something else that you probably need to avoid if you're eating a low oil diet. I found that for years I used to have problems with a lot of burping and just sort of discomfort when I ate olives. I also found, incidentally, that oil-packed tuna was a complete no-no. I had a terrible gallbladder attack once after eating oil-packed tuna. Very bad, very uncomfortable. But you learn these things by trial and error, and I'm trying to help anyone who might need it avoid error by giving some of my experiences here. Okay, this would be a good salad for 2 people, I think. And another thing, you know, you do save money because you're not eating as much. But oh boy, I mean, it is a real revelation to ladle out my plate and to look at it and to realize there's about half as much food on it as I used to have. Now here's some of the dressing. We can put some of that on if we like, or I can wait and put the dressing on at a later date, which is actually what I'm going to do, because I prefer to add it just before I serve the salad. So you've got a very nice, simple, and be sure and add some pepper if you want. Oh yes, I know. I was going to put in some dill. Right here. I've got dill here. What did I do? I used a British expression. How silly of me. Sometimes I think I grew up around a lot. I had a lot of British people in my growing up years. People around me, relatives, people who visited, things like that from my parents and grandparents. So every now and again I'll sound British, and it's partly because I just picked that up when I was a kid and incorporated it into my dialogue. People will say to me, "Where do you come from?" I say, "Well, I was around a lot of accents growing up," and that's the truth. I was. German friends, English friends. My parents had a lot of friends. My grandmother too. Okay, now see this? Nice fresh dill. Oh, that's going to taste so good. So nice. Now, don't be scared of herbs. Some people, I can't figure it out, you know, they add like a teaspoon, half a teaspoon. You see recipes that call for, you know, such tiny amounts. Oh, and I'll add some parsley too. How about that? You see people recipes that call for half a teaspoon of dried herbs. I don't know how anyone can taste anything that small. Just tiny, tiny. Here's some good parsley. Now where'd my scissors go? Here they are. Okay, a little bit more. Good parsley. Oh, snip, snip. Tasty, tasty. Don't you love the smell? Well, you can't smell it, but when you are doing yours, you notice the smell. And you give thanks for the good food you're making. Okay, now we've got a nice tuna salad for two. Could be chicken if we wanted it. Could be tuna, could be chicken. Now, if you don't want to go to the trouble of doing the dressing and you don't want to use mayonnaise, just put on some of the good olive oil and some little bit of any kind of vinegar you like. Apple cider vinegar is good, but I think for a tuna salad I would probably use a balsamic vinegar. So this is a couple of meals. You can tuck it away in your fridge and be good to your gallbladder. It doesn't hurt to have an ultrasound. If you can have one, if your doctor will let you have one, check and see. Maybe your gallbladder needs looking at. It could be. Some of the symptoms I had no idea that it was going to be my gallbladder. And a lot of burping and gas and things like that. Gallbladders, funny things. And you can live nicely without it if you have to, as I plan to sooner or later. But in the meantime, I'm eating to please my gallbladder, and perhaps you can too, even if you don't think you have any problems. Until the next time, I wish you all well. I wish you all happy cooking. And I'm just going to say bye for now. Lots of good cooks and lots of good food and wonderful recipes too. But for a meal that makes folks smile, there's one thing you must do. Cook it with love. Cook it with love. Cook it with love.